All right, hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. We do educational videos here, and we focus on great theories of everything, ancient and modern, trying to give you something that you can really use for everything, for your awakening to 5D consciousness, your formation of a holistic worldview, your paradigm shifting, your quest for physical, mental, and spiritual health and wealth. And today is our 45th video that we've done on the book called Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha from Dr. Daniel Ingram. And Ingram is a physician, but he is also got a lot of bona fides in terms of meditation retreats over in the Far East, and accomplishments, picking the brain of many monks in the tradition, as well as books in the tradition, as well as experience on the cushion meditating for 18 hours a day for months, and has surveyed the territory, we'll say, the mental territory of all kinds of Buddhist practice, and has come back to give us his findings in English, in plain language. And so I think it's a great resource. He in particular providing maps of the territory. And we are in a chapter on the stages of insight. Insight being one of the three trainings of Buddhism, along with morality and concentration. So two types of meditation: concentration on an object, and insight into the nature of our reality through the five sense doors, the five senses and the mind, and recognizing that all of those phenomena are impermanent. They have the three characteristics of being impermanent, dissatisfactory, and not self. And being able to illuminate ourselves in that manner, and end suffering for ourselves in that manner. So he provides all the steps, says it is like a science. A certain input will result in a certain output, cause and effect. So if you go through this territory, he thinks that this is hardwired, that we all have the same experiences, more or less. Okay, let's take over here in chapter 31. He's talking about, I think we're about to finish the Dark Night of the Soul, but we're still in reobservation, which is stage number 10 of the Buddhist stages of insight. And so here we go, talking about reobservation, stage 10. For those using more ordinary objects, aversion to meditation and experience can arise as we react to the vibrations in this stage, which can be fast, chaotic, and harsh. The noise in our repetitive minds can be quite irritating. By repetitive, I mean that this stage can involve repeating thoughts, songs, and stories, like we have a horrible case of the evil earworms in the metaphorical sense of annoying songs that get stuck playing in our heads. Ever had a fever and had some irritating thought circling again and again in your head? This stage can produce similar experiences. Some of my own descriptions of this stage while on retreat have included such phrases as the mind storm and a bracing work in D minor for sixth sense doors, hailstorm, and stuttering banshee. If we are very powerful meditators who yet lack enough equanimity and tranquility, remember the 7 factors of awakening, those are 2 of them, it can literally feel as if we will be torn apart by harsh vibrations. At some illusory level of the sense of continuity and stability, this is exactly what we are trying to accomplish. However, even if very difficult manifestations arise, if we are practicing well, then they should not last long at all. At best, minutes, at worst, hours or days. Once I began to get what this stage was about and what it was useful for, a perspective that had a hard learning curve, I would intentionally amplify the sense of being torn apart, directing this stage's sharp and cutting ability to shred reality at anything that happened, anything that appeared, even the slightest bit stable or continuous anywhere in the body, mind, or experience in general. That is a skillful use of the perspective that this stage allows us. In a similar vein, and as mentioned before, those few who are crossing this territory with world-class concentration abilities and using a very rarefied object such as a complex visualization or on sacred geometry may, if they are very good at it, pass through this stage with little or no difficulty. It can be fascinating and subtly rapturous, as this is the peak of the 3rd Vipassana jhana. Strong practitioners fusing insight and concentration practices may notice that the proportion of the visualized field that is organized into clear images gets broader and broader. The patterns may become more complex. The phase problems get more and more bizarre. The visual field may take on more spherical dimensions, with curving images beginning to encircle or ensphere you. The images may appear to have manifold symmetries and repetitions, and these generated images and sounds may come around to encompass basically the whole field of experience. This can be like watching an IMAX movie of a moving Technicolor spirograph in the front row. As mentioned earlier, I have also seen gigantic fields of hyper-detailed, repeating, shifting patterns of things like spiders, mushrooms, snakes, skulls, fingers with claws, and other creeping and disconcerting things, but on careful inspection, they were beautiful, vibrant, and amazing in their intricacy. I use this example partly due to my own experiments and partly to illustrate general points. Different objects and practitioners will most definitely produce different specifics, such as colors, images, etc., while some aspects of what happens at this stage will remain the same and are therefore universal. It goes to illustrate a basic point. Reobservation need not be a problem if you have very solid meditation skills. Even if you don't, it still need not be a big deal if you know what to look for, what to expect, how to handle it, and that it too shall pass. Dry insight workers get through this stage all the time, just fine with good practice. Further, if you are reading this book, you probably already crossed the arising and passing event or stage, as mentioned already, and so you have probably already handled it at least once and may not have even known it. And even if you haven't yet, you still may do just fine. We've all been through hard times, and this is just one more phase that might be potentially challenging. You see, reobservation is all fluff and no substance, but if you confuse fluff for substance, the effect will be the same as if it actually had substance. Bodily sensations of creepy revulsion, disgust, or profound existential angst may arise, and yet those with wisdom will notice they are like confetti, like sparkles of light, like raindrops, albeit seemingly acid raindrops. Still, they are not harmful. In fact, they apparently do something great to the mind, since reobservation leads to the next stage, equanimity. This normalizing knowledge is power. Reobservation is like a toothless dog with a ferocious bark. If you run screaming or faint from fear when the dog barks, then it needed no teeth to prevent your progress. It is like a hologram of a snarling demon that you can just walk right through, and it can't touch or harm you at all. There is a curious freedom when you deeply realize that you are safe in reobservation, that you can go deep into the pit, and the pit is just fine. In review stages, coming up later, a period when it can be easy to call up specific stages and stay in them to get a better sense of them. I have again and again called up reobservation just to check it out and learn its secrets. On a somewhat different note, however bad reobservation is, we can't always blame it for everything. The primary sign that the negative side effects that may occur in the dark night are not associated with insight stages, but instead are due to other ordinary real-world processes, is that they do not change much in the face of strong and accepting investigation or when we stop practice entirely. Remember, you have two sets of effects going on, insight-related and other circumstances and psychological aspects of your life. If good insight practice, done well and bravely, with strong investigation and good technique, is not fixing your life situation, then you may instead have standard, ordinary problems to be dealt with by ordinary, real-world methods. As you can likely already tell, the dark night tends to get practitioners strategizing, trying to figure out the best way to crack it and get to equanimity. This has led to various teachers and practitioners developing their own distinct schools of thought that may deem some techniques and approaches the most optimal, typically the techniques that have worked best for them. However, those who have gone through the dark night enough times and with a range of approaches, techniques, and attitudes and practice conditions will eventually realize that there are many, many ways to skin this cat, to use an un-Buddhist metaphor. Exercise often helps. Loving kindness practices get recommended often for good reason. Strict vipassana and ultra-rapid noting work well for those with a high tolerance for pain. Slower noting might work for those with a bit more time and less interest in shattering themselves. Some teachers highly recommend physical practices such as yoga with a high degree of bodily awareness, as that can ground people in something other than their psychological stuff. Others might highly recommend plunging hard into their psychological issues and healing with a great deal of sensate mindfulness of that process to ensure it keeps producing insights. Others with mighty concentration skills might go for more abstract objects, such as sacred geometry, as mentioned above. The concentrate your ass off strategy in the dark night has much to recommend it. Loving kindness practices and other Brahma viharas covered in part 6 are commonly reported to be helpful. Yet others might recommend more shamanic and psychonautic techniques to cause the sort of radical unsticking that can happen with those methods, and reality testing shows that those do sometimes work for some people but cause problems for others, and predicting which will result is not easy. Each of these strategies has risks and benefits to be considered. In contrast to what most people might expect me to advocate here, it is true that much more gentle approaches can also work in reobservation and the dark night in general. Some find that softening, opening, and accepting generate much better results than more aggressive approaches such as rapid noting or surfing fine vibrations. Sometimes just carefully investigating and gently relaxing what is often called body armor, those physical tensions that correspond to psychological blocks and tensions, can be quite effective in this territory. Others among us will notice that just carefully investigating other aspects of our lives, like physical tensions related to roles and identities, will help facilitate progress here. Some do well with intellectual reflection coupled with some sensate investigation and repeated questions such as, where am I contracted? What am I clinging to? Asked well and often enough will actually yield good results. Some with more spacious tendencies may notice that just feeling into the subtle moving warps in our sense of attention or space that are the hallmarks of the third Vipassana jhana will be all they need. And doing this with the eyes open rather than closed can help us keep from getting lost. Many of these methods just require doing them well enough for long enough to get them to cause progress. Even stranger measures can be oddly fascinating here, although they may superficially seem to have little to nothing to do with insight practice. Some practitioners may just need to change locations, resolve a single conflict with one person, cry about one issue they need to grieve over properly, make some other simple change, or go through some other simple process, and then suddenly everything opens. Just giving yourself permission to care for yourself might make a difference. I recommend the books When Things Fall Apart and Start Where You Are by Ani Pema Chodron, as the yin energy of these books will help counterbalance the energy of this book, which can be too yang sometimes. Nurturing strategies often help a lot in the dark night. I remember one cycle through this territory where what cracked it was just dancing wildly for hours until I was totally exhausted. A few will oddly do well by stopping practice entirely, forgetting entirely about progress and the maps and all of that, and just surrendering. But this last one generally only works when the meditator is in the correct place and has done enough work and growth already for that strategy to make sense. This is a small subset of the various strategies that might work and that teachers advocate. You will have to assess your own capabilities, inclinations, intuition, resources, and what you have available to find what works best for you. Experimentation and a willingness to regroup and retry if you fail with one approach are key as failure and frustration are common experiences the first few times we try to crack the nut of the dark night. If you are on retreat, it typically only takes about 10 days to 2 weeks of struggling in the dark night to fall back to earlier stages and have another shot at it. So you can try a new strategy on the next pass if the first pass strategy didn't work. I still generally feel that very simple practice, 6 sense doors, 3 characteristics, is the best practice for all insight stages. One day, I hope that scientific methods and controlled experiments are applied to find how best to navigate this territory. Until then, take your best guess, and if it doesn't work, try again. Due to the sorts of frustrations and failures that are common in this territory, this stage is sometimes called the rolling up the mat stage. When many who join monasteries in the stage of the arising and passing away now give up and disrobe. People on retreats tend to need much reassurance, but often leave right then, even with good support, guidance, and encouragement. Are you suddenly needing to leave a retreat that you had planned to stay in much longer? You are likely in this stage. There can be the distinct feeling that there is no way to go forward, and it is useless to go back, which is exactly the lesson we should learn. Acceptance of exactly this, right here and right now, is required, even if it seems that this mind and this body are completely unacceptable and unworthy objects of investigation. Remember, no sensations are unworthy of investigation. One of the hallmarks of the early part of this stage is that we may begin to clearly see exactly what our minds do all day long. See with great clarity how the illusion of a dualistic split is created in the first place, sensation by sensation, moment to moment. But there is not yet enough of a meta perspective and equanimity to make good use of this information. This can be very frustrating as we wonder how many times we must learn these lessons before they stick. The interesting thing is that this stage, when gone through at the level of emotions and vibrations, rather than in the realms of light produced by strong concentration, will nearly always come with a sense that it lasted just a bit longer than we could take it. And yet somehow we can take it, and it does end. Intense feelings of frustration and disenchantment with life, relationships, sex, jobs, moral codes, the world, and worldly responsibilities may emerge at this stage in ways that can cause enormous disorientation, disruption, and angst. Reobservation can take whatever issues and reactions arose in the earlier stages of fear, misery, disgust, and desire for deliverance, combine them in fiendish ways, then crank that intensity to the next level, a level that can seem overwhelming. Those aspects of our life can temporarily seem bland and pointless at this stage, though it may seem that this will always be the way we feel about them. This stage can mimic or perhaps manifest as some degree of clinical depression. Beware of making radical life changes that cannot be easily undone, such as a divorce or firing off angry emails to your boss based upon the temporary feelings that may arise during this stage. For those who recognize that they are in this stage, some form of active mental compensation for these potential effects can be helpful to facilitate maintaining our relationships, jobs, studies, etc. at a functional level. This can be very skillful if it is also combined with practice that allows the experiences of this stage to be acknowledged and understood as well. I should be careful here in that while I generally advocate for maintaining jobs, relationships, studies, and the like, if possible, in the face of dark night stuff, there is obviously no way for me to know for certain that this is the right course of action for you or anyone else, as the future is unknown and unpredictable. This is obviously not helpful, as we might wish for concrete, reliable guidelines on as to how to proceed, and yet, unfortunately, there are none. Maybe shaving your head and joining a monastery really is the best thing you could possibly do. On the other hand, maybe preserving your marriage and job is. There are obviously many other options that might suddenly seem like good ideas in this stage, and whether in retrospect they will have been as good an idea as they seemed at the time is anyone's guess. I wish I could definitely tell you what to do, but I can't. Still, there is something to be said for optionality, even if, in the dark night, all options can seem like bad options. Not trashing possibly valuable relationships helps preserve optionality and generally lessens later regrets. There are ways to gain some space in which to let this disorienting and often disruptive process mature that are more skillful and less damaging than others, and I wish you well in finding those. Layers of unhelpful and previously hidden expectation, pressure, and anxiety can reveal their true uselessness, though this beneficial process can feel very confusing and difficult. We may get the sense that we have never had such a strong emotional life, and until we get used to this new awareness of our previously subtle or unacknowledged feelings, this stage can seem overwhelming. Occasionally, people at this stage can also have what appears to be a full psychotic break, or what is often called a nervous breakdown, though if these are truly a side effect of insight practices, they should pass quickly. The main key here is to continue to acknowledge and accept the content, but also to see the true nature of the sensations that make up these natural phenomena. This can be extremely hard to do, especially if people have chanced upon this stage without the benefit of the support and guidance of a well-developed insight tradition and qualified teachers who can easily recognize and navigate this territory. Even for those who do get into this in a well-developed tradition, unrealistic spiritual ideals can really screw up practice. In your idealized spiritual world, you imagine you aren't supposed to be insanely frustrated, on edge, shuddering from some strange wrongness you can't figure out because you are a meditator. You are practicing something good, and so you shouldn't feel this way, or at least so the traditions might seem to tell us. However, this is exactly where your practice led you at some point, where it took you, what is really going on, because you have entered aspects of the human psyche you wish would just go away, and you wouldn't have to deal with. Go into them, but with wisdom, with clear morality, with some sense that you can go there and be okay, with some control of what you think, say, and do. The classic arc of the hero's journey, where at some point they must enter the underworld, mirrors this part of the path. Part of the flip side of the next stage involves going there, being honest, dealing with an utterly unspiritual way of being that might not fit your ideals at all. Keep a lid on the bleed through, but internally be willing to be emotionally honest and keep investigating. This is an acquired taste, and getting comfortable doing this is not easy for most people. Still, it is a great skill to learn. Those who do not know what to do with this stage, or who are overwhelmed by the mind states can get so swept away in the content that they begin to lose it. This is the far extreme of what can happen in this stage. Fear is frightening, misery is miserable, and seemingly psychotic episodes are confusing and destabilizing. In the face of such miserable experiences, we may swing to the opposite extreme, clinging desperately to grandiose or narcissistic images of ourselves. These reactions can easily perpetuate themselves, and this can become a blatantly destructive mental habit if people persisted in wallowing in these dark emotions and their deep unresolved issues for too long. It can be like cognitive restructuring from hell. Do not do this to yourself. I should mention the problem with developing concentration, which you must have succeeded at least some degree at some point to get into this territory. Strong concentration is a generic force that may be used for good or ill. If you use strong concentration to write positive qualities on the mind, they will be written more strongly than if you didn't have strong concentration. Likewise, if you have strong concentration and end up writing negative qualities on the mind, those will also be written more strongly than if you lacked strong concentration. That is the danger in this stage. Thus, the essential point is, if you ever develop strong concentration, you must be extremely careful with what you do with it. Part 6, specifically chapters 58 to 61, will go into more about this, but the basic lesson is straightforward. Specifically, if you continue to be strongly identified with content without perceiving its true nature, and your strongly concentrated mind dives down that pathway of focusing entirely on the story, particularly negative interpretations of the story without seeing those thoughts as thoughts, then the mind can spiral down and down into madness and despair, and more madness and despair can lead to a horrid feedback loop. I call this dark jhana, like the exact reverse of jhana. In skillful jhana, we skillfully use positive qualities to attract and stabilize attention, which then reinforces those positive qualities in a positive feedback loop. In dark jhana, we unskillfully reinforce horrible mind states by obsessing about horrible mind states from within horrible mind states while being freaked out by horrible mind states. Okay, we're going to stop right there and take